Formula One, a sport fueled with adrenaline.
He almost touches Verstappen! They almost make contact! Into turn 9, Verstappen!
But more often than not, that adrenaline can boil into crashes.
There was absolutely nothing he could do. The
just braked and, Mark.
Some more horrifying than others. One driver was able to walk out of a fireball, literally staring death in its eyes and saying, "Not today." So, what are the crashes that changed the course of Formula One forever? Stay tuned to find out. 1. Romain Grosjean, 2020. Let's start with something more recent. Romain Grosjean back in 2020. In the closing stages of the season, the Haas driver endured a horrifying and dramatic crash after making contact with the AlphaTauri of Danny Kvyat during the Bahrain GP. This sent him to the barrier with an astonishing speed of 192 km per hour. At which point, the car split into two parts. The force was estimated to be at 67 G-forces, and with flames engulfing the front part of the car, there was no sign of Grosjean whatsoever. Many considered him to be dead. After all, you don't survive such an impact and get away with it unscrathed. Bear in mind the fireball that engulfed the Frenchman. It was the longest 30 seconds that the Formula One fans have witnessed. But at the end, Formula One has shown, with proof, why its equipment is considered one of the most protective and safest in the motorsport world. Marshals were able to get Grosjean out of the car, and he got away with second-degree burns on both hands and minor ankle burns, but without a single broken bone. What saved Grosjean, apart from a prayer and a miracle? The Halo cockpit protection, a titanium shield that absorbed most of the impact, a survival cell and hands, Nomex fire-resistant gear, combined with rapid medical response. These are the things that Romain needs to mention every single day once he wakes up and before he goes to bed. Now, do you believe that Grosjean would have survived this crash if it happened before all of the safety inventions, for example, in the early 2000s? 2. Jules Bianchi, Suzuka, 2014. Let's talk about the race that brought Halo into the world of Formula One, Suzuka 2014. Unfortunately, we had to see a driver lose his life. But had it not been for the severity of this crash, I highly doubt F1 would ever implement the Halo device, considering that it met a lot of backlash from superstars since its introduction in 2018. Now, during the 2014 edition of the Suzuka GP, Jules Bianchi crashed into a recovery vehicle in very poor racing conditions. On the 42nd lap of the race, Adrien Sutil spun at turn 7, a crash that required a crane removal of his formula. Double wave yellow flags were shown, which means that the drivers had to significantly decrease their driving speed. Bianchi, however, didn't reduce his speed enough for the yellow flags, which resulted in a loss of grip on a wet patch. Having to overcorrect this mistake, Bianchi understeered off the track and went directly into the path of the recovery crane. His car hit the vehicle with an enormous speed of 126 km per hour, and at the peak, the forces were measured at 254 G. Investigations reveal that Bianchi both braked and applied throttle in a simultaneous manner, but his car's failsafe didn't cut power due to an incompatibility with a brake-by-wire system. Jules underwent emergency surgery for a severe diffuse axonal brain injury and remained in a coma until the 17th of July 2015, 9 months later, when he passed away. He became the first driver to die from race injuries since Ayrton Senna back in 1994, and Formula One had to make sure accidents like this won't happen again. From this race onwards, it was vowed that the safety of the drivers would be prioritised to a greater extent, hence the introduction of the Halo device in 2018 and the introduction of what we know today as the virtual safety car, as well as stricter protocols on recovery vehicle deployment. The question remains though, do you think Bianchi would have survived this with the Halo protection? 3. Niki Lauda, Nürburgring 1976. The mastermind himself wore the scars of this one battle for the rest of his life. In a very fierce battle with his then championship contender, James Hunt, Lauda wanted to extract as much potential as possible from his Ferrari. Prior to the race, he led a boycott rally in which he wanted the drivers to not participate in the race because of the fact that the circuit itself was labelled as the Green Hell. But nevertheless, many believed there was something political behind his genuine thoughts, and the race weekend continued as normal. But on lap 2, and a fast kink before berg work, the 312 T2 slid off and struck an embankment. In a violent manner, it rebounded onto the track and was then engulfed in flames. For approximately 50 to 60 seconds, Lauda was sitting in the car while fire torched him in temperatures that breached 800 degrees Celsius. And thanks to his fellow colleagues, Lunger, Ertel, Edwards and Mazzario, Lauda was pulled away from the blazing cockpit. The aftermath: severe burns to his face, head and hands, inhaled toxic gases, and lost most of his right ear, eyebrows and eyelashes. For a brief period, Lauda fell into a coma, and due to the lung damage, he had a lot of the toxic gases pumped out mechanically in the hospital. If you want to know more about this period of F1 racing, make sure to watch the movie Rush. Even though Lauda returned to racing just 6 weeks later, beating all the odds, there were some massive changes to the Formula 1 world. For starters, we haven't seen racing on the Nordschleife section of Nürburgring. A shorter and safer version was built, Nürburgring Strecke, one that debuted in 1984. Safety gears improvement was further enhanced, and the sport turned its focus on fire safety and extraction out of the cars in a much swifter manner. 4. Ayrton Senna, 1994. Now, this video wouldn't be proper without the mention of the greatest driver in the sport, Ayrton Senna. His last race was back in 1994 during the San Marino GP, now known as the Imola GP, on Sunday, one day after the tragic passing of Roland Ratzenberger on the same circuit in qualifying. After leading from pole position, Senna's FW16 veered off at Tamburello on the race restart at lap 7. It went on to hit the concrete barrier at 305 km/h, resulting in a massive crash. A fragment of what seemed to be either suspension or a wheel struck his helmet, critically injuring Senna. After many investigations, it turned out that the steering column had snapped, which was the primary cause of the crash. Even though Senna received immediate emergency care trackside before being transported to the Bologna hospital, the Brazilian wasn't able to survive the consequences from the crash. This was the first F1 weekend with fatality since 1982, and the first with 2 deaths at a single event since 1960. So, Formula 1 did precisely what you'd think it would do: revolutionize safety. The track was redesigned with Tech Pro barriers and extensive runoff zones, but more importantly, the higher cockpit size, Kevlar restraints and accident data recorders were installed. The mandatory HANS device was also motivated by this crash, even though it was introduced all the way back in 2003, as were digital steering wheels and brakes. Thanks to these innovations, the sport hasn't seen a fatal crash for 20 years. 5. Gilles Villeneuve, Zolder, 1982. Even though the revolution was more on the organisation of the weekend, it's still disappointing that Formula 1 had to see a driver die before they took things a bit more seriously. During the Belgium GP, Gilles Villeneuve approached the crest after the first chicane in the final qualifying session, where he tried to overtake Jochen Mass. Jochen moved right to let him through, but Gilles moved right as well, which led to a contact that saw Villeneuve's Ferrari being launched in the air at a speed of 200 to 225 km/h, somersaulting over 100 meters and nosediving into the ground. Now, thanks to this accident, the sport increased race safety and pit-to-car communication, but the biggest change was made in the qualifying tyres. Before Zolder 1982, qualifying tyres were specific to the qualifying sessions. It was a significant factor in Villeneuve's accident, who tried to set a fast time with a new set of those. While they were still in use in the subsequent seasons, no further incidents similar to the one of Gilles happened in the world of Formula 1, which suggests that improved communication and race safety did their thing as well. Now, what are your thoughts on the most horrifying crashes that changed the course of Formula 1 forever? Let us know in the comments down below, and once you do that, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more related content.